let me say something that might sound ridiculous at first. 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil before bed can change how your body behaves overnight. Not in a magical melt fat while you sleep way, not in a miracle cure way, but in a quiet, physiological way that shows up in places people actually care about. How hungry you feel late at night, how steady your blood sugar runs after dinner, whether your digestion moves in the morning, how inflamed your body feels, and whether your sleep feels restorative or fragmented. And here's the twist. The internet loves turning this into a gimmick. So today, we're doing the opposite. We're going to look at the real science, the plausible mechanisms, the limits, and the exact way to test it safely, so you can decide whether this is a smart habit for you or a waste of calories. By the end, you'll know what olive oil can realistically do and what it can't, why before bed might matter for some people, who should not try this, how much to use, and how to run a simple 7-day experiment that gives you an honest answer. Because the truth is, your body responds to patterns, not hype. Quick note, this video is for education, not medical advice. If you have diabetes on medication, gallbladder issues, digestive disease, or you take blood thinners, talk with your clinician before changing your routine. Now let's get into it. Olive oil isn't just fat. It's a package. In most diets, fat gets treated like a villain or a calorie bomb, but EVOO is a little different because it's rich in monounsaturated fat, mainly oleic acid, polyphenols, plant compounds that behave like antioxidants and signaling molecules. When researchers study olive oil in real populations, higher olive oil intake is often linked with lower cardiovascular risk and lower mortality, especially when it replaces less healthy fats. Meta-analyses and large cohort studies have found consistent associations between olive oil consumption and reduced risk of cardiovascular disease and overall mortality. Important, these are often observational findings. That means olive oil might be part of a larger healthy pattern: more vegetables, more home cooking, fewer ultra-processed foods. So olive oil isn't a magic shield, but it's also not just calories. And that brings us to the first bedtime benefit people notice. A lot of late-night eating isn't hunger. It's a mix of habit, stress, blood sugar swings, and the brain chasing a dopamine hit. Fat slows down digestion. That's not a rumor. That's basic physiology. If your dinner is extremely low fat and high in refined carbs, you can get a fast rise and fall in blood sugar. And then, 2 or 3 hours later, you feel that I need something feeling. Adding a modest amount of EVOO to dinner can do 2 things. Increase fullness so you're less likely to snack later. Slow carbohydrate absorption, flattening the glucose spike. This matters for anyone trying to manage weight. But it matters even more if you're insulin resistant, pre-diabetic, or simply sensitive to carbohydrate swings. Now, does olive oil cause weight loss? No. If you add a tablespoon on top of everything else and change nothing, you could gain weight, because fat is calorie dense. But if olive oil replaces something like a sugary dessert snack, chips, or a second helping, then it can actually help you control intake because it improves satiety. That's the first before bed idea. Not that nighttime has magical fat burning, but that nighttime is when cravings usually ambush people. A small strategic fat dose can change the outcome. And here's something I want to say bluntly. If you're going to use calories at night, use them intelligently. A tablespoon of EVOO is roughly 120 calories. If that 120 calories prevents a 400 to 800 calorie late night spiral, it's not a problem. It's a tool. Most people think blood sugar only matters if you have diabetes. That's a mistake. Blood sugar swings affect sleep quality, overnight stress hormones, morning energy, cravings the next day. If you eat a carb-heavy dinner and then crash later, your body can respond by releasing stress hormones to stabilize glucose. That can translate into lighter sleep, waking up at night, or waking up with that wired, slightly anxious feeling. Adding EVOO to dinner can help flatten the post-meal curve. And this lines up with broader evidence that olive oil intake is associated with better cardiometabolic outcomes in populations, with benefits often seen at moderate daily intakes around 20 grams per day in some analyses. But let's keep it real. The biggest blood sugar improvement doesn't come from olive oil alone. It comes from eating fewer refined carbs at night, adding protein and fiber, walking 10 minutes after dinner, and sleeping consistently. EVOO is a multiplier, not the entire strategy. The original video describes olive oil as lubricating the digestive tract. That's a common way people explain it, but digestion is more complex. Constipation usually comes from a combination of low fiber intake, dehydration, low gut motility, disrupted routine, medications, or pelvic floor dysfunction. A tablespoon of EVOO before bed won't fix all of that, but it can help some people for two practical reasons. Fat can stimulate bile release, which can support digestion and motility in certain cases. Taking EVOO when a stomach is relatively empty may allow it to move through the upper GI tract without being lost inside a heavy meal. Still, I want to be responsible here. If constipation is chronic, painful, or associated with bleeding, weight loss, or sudden change, don't treat that with olive oil hacks. But if you're someone who's just stuck sometimes, especially after travel or stress, then a teaspoon to a tablespoon of EVOO can be a gentle experiment. And if you want the highest impact constipation combo, here's the honest formula. Morning water plus a routine adequate dietary fiber, movement daily, and magnesium glycinate or citrate if appropriate. Ask your clinician. Olive oil can be part of a bigger plan, not a solo fix. Now let's talk about the liver, because this topic gets traumatic fast. Yes, your liver is deeply involved in metabolism, and yes, sleep is when your body runs repair processes. But detox is a loaded word. Your liver doesn't flush toxins like a drain. It performs complex biochemical transformations so compounds can be processed and eliminated. So where does olive oil fit? A growing body of research suggests EVOO, especially as part of a Mediterranean-style dietary pattern, can be associated with better liver fat markers and liver enzyme profiles in certain populations. There are studies and reviews looking at olive oil and metabolic-associated fatty liver disease, MASLD, NAFLD, with some evidence that higher quality EVOO, higher phenolic content, may be more beneficial. But here's the key point. It's the pattern that tends to matter most. Replacing saturated processed fats with EVOO, eating more plants, reducing ultra-processed foods. Managing total calories if liver fat is present. If someone is drinking olive oil at night but still living on soda, processed snacks, and zero movement, the liver won't be impressed. So I'd phrase the liver benefit honestly like this. EVOO may support liver health, particularly when it replaces less healthy fats and is paired with a Mediterranean-style pattern. The before-bed timing may be less important than daily consistency, but bedtime can be a convenient anchor habit. That's the fair, evidence-aligned take. Olive oil contains phenolic compounds, and one of the most famous is oleocanthal, often discussed for anti-inflammatory activity. What does that mean practically? Chronic low-grade inflammation is associated with metabolic dysfunction, cardiovascular issues, joint pain and stiffness, fatigue, and even sleep disruption. EVOO is not a painkiller, but in a diet pattern, EVOO can support a lower inflammatory load, especially compared with diets high in refined seed oils, plus processed foods, plus added sugars. Also, Olive oil reduces inflammation doesn't mean you take a spoon and your pain disappears overnight. Most benefits, if they happen, show up with weeks to months of consistent intake, overall diet cleanup, and improved sleep and movement. So if you try this, I want you to measure the right outcome. Don't look for miracles. Look for morning stiffness decreasing, fewer random aches, better recovery, more stable energy. If you only remember one concept from this video, make it this. Olive oil works best when it replaces something worse. Large studies in the US and elsewhere have linked olive oil intake with lower risk of cardiovascular events and mortality. And replacement analyses often show benefit when olive oil replaces margarine, butter, or processed fats. So the bedtime spoon isn't magical because bedtime is magical. It's beneficial because it can replace a dessert, replace late-night processed snacks, replace mindless eating with a controlled, consistent habit. That consistency is what heart health responds to over years. The original content claims EZOO increases melatonin bioavailability and receptor sensitivity. Here's the careful, reality-based version. Sleep quality is influenced by blood sugar stability, inflammation, and circadian regularity. EVOO can support metabolic health in broader patterns. If EVOO helps reduce late-night hunger or glucose swings, that can indirectly improve sleep for some people. But if someone claims olive oil directly boosts melatonin in a clinically meaningful way just because it's taken at night, that's not the strongest claim in the whole list. So why do some people swear they sleep better? Because what they actually changed was they stopped late-night snacking, they stabilized dinner, they reduced reflux trigger foods, they created a calming ritual. The ritual matters. Your brain loves predictable cues. A small, consistent pre-bed routine signals safety and shuts down the search for stimulation loop. So, my take is EVOO can support conditions that help sleep, but it's not a sleep medication. If you get better sleep from it, great. Just don't oversell the mechanism. Now, let's make this practical and safe. Option A, add EVOO to dinner. This is the most natural approach. Drizzle on vegetables, soup, salad, fish, chicken, beans. Pair it with protein and fiber. This tends to be easier on the stomach and less likely to trigger nausea. Option B, the bedtime spoon. If you're doing the spoon test, here's the smart way. Start with 1 teaspoon for 3 nights. If you tolerate it, go to 2 teaspoons. Max at 1 tablespoon. Anything beyond that is more likely to cause cramps, reflux, or diarrhea. Timing. If constipation is the goal, take it closer to bedtime when your stomach isn't packed. If reflux is a problem, do not take it lying down right before bed. Take it earlier, or stick to dinner. Who should be cautious or avoid? People with severe acid reflux, GERD. Fat near bedtime can worsen symptoms. People with gallbladder disease or a history of biliary colic. Fat can trigger symptoms. People with pancreatitis history. Fat tolerance can be an issue. People on certain medications, especially if you have complex medical conditions. Anyone who's trying to lose weight but already struggles with calorie control. Because a tablespoon can quietly push you into surplus if you don't replace something else. And if you have diabetes and take glucose-lowering meds, don't treat olive oil like a medicine. Track your numbers and talk to your clinician. Here's how to test this without fooling yourself. For 7 nights, keep everything else as consistent as possible. Pick one bowl: late-night cravings, overnight sleep quality, morning bowel movement consistency, morning energy, joint stiffness. Choose your method: dinner drizzle or bedtime teaspoon dose. Start at 1 teaspoon for days 1 to 3. Go to 2 teaspoons for days 4 to 7. Only go to 1 tablespoon if you're tolerating it and you're replacing a bigger snack. Track each morning. Rate sleep quality 1 to 10. Cravings 1 to 10. Digestion comfort 1 to 10. Bowel movement ease 1 to 10. Stiffness 1 to 10. At the end of 7 days, you'll know whether this helps you. And if it doesn't, perfect. You just saved yourself a lifelong habit you don't need. If you're going to do this, don't waste your effort on low-quality oil. Look for extra virgin, harvest date, or at least a best by date that isn't near. Dark bottle, peppery, bitter notes, often a sign of polyphenols, though taste varies. Store it away from heat and light, sealed tight. Also, don't cook it at extreme high heat for long periods if you're trying to maximize polyphenols. Use it for finishing, dressings, low to medium heat cooking. Here's what I think is really happening when people say, olive oil before bed changed my life. The spoon isn't the miracle. The miracle is the pattern. A more intentional dinner, fewer ultra-processed calories at night, steadier blood sugar, less inflammatory load, better routine, better sleep. Olive oil becomes a symbol of control, something simple you can do every night that nudges you toward a healthier trajectory. And that's powerful, because health doesn't usually collapse in a day. It drifts slowly through thousands of small choices. So if a tablespoon of EVOO helps you shut the kitchen down at night, stabilize your evenings, and wake up more consistent, that's not a gimmick. So tonight, if you want to try it, don't treat it like a miracle cure. Treat it like a 7-day experiment with a clear goal. Start small. Keep it simple. Watch what changes. And if you want the biggest payoff, remember the rule. Olive oil works best when it replaces something that was hurting you: late-night sugar, processed snacks, or an unbalanced dinner. If you found this helpful, the next step is easy. Look at your dinner plate and ask one question. What can I replace with something cleaner, just once a day? That's how the change becomes real. And if you want, I can also write a tighter 8 to 10 minute version of this script in your channel's exact style. Same message, more punch, faster pacing.